Welcome to the next episode of the multi-award winning Fiero Cast. I am your host, Mike Croyer, and I am back behind the microphone after a very busy football season where we got to the TCYFL football Super Bowl, but did come up just a little short. It was exciting, but a little disappointing. But hey, the kids played awesome, and we move on to next year. So first, I'd like to thank all of the listeners for making FieroCast the most listened to podcast for the Fiero. FieroCast has received another award from Corporate Concepts for Best Single Vehicle Automotive Podcast in the Midwest for 2025. So thank you again for making this an award-winning podcast. Today, we'll be looking back at Fierorama and also talking to a few participants. Then we will jump into a two-part series on the Fiero engines. This episode will cover the 2.5-liter four-cylinder engines. Again, I am your host, Mike Croyer, and you are listening to the newest episode of FieroCast, the only podcast dedicated to the Pontiac Fiero and the Fiero community. You can find past FieroCast episodes at FieroFocus.com or on our Facebook page, as well as our YouTube page. We'd like to thank you, our FieroCast supporters, for the almost end of 2025. The Fiero Store, Rodney Dickman, Bonter Solutions, the Midwest Fiero Clubs, GoldenEye Graphic, the N.I.F.E. Store, Northern Illinois Fiero Enthusiasts, and Auto Modella. This episode today is brought to you by the Fiero Store. We know how hard it is to find Fiero parts. We also know that as years go by, finding parts isn't going to get any easier. The big box stores will never make new Fiero parts because our community is just too small. This is why we need to support the companies that support us. For nearly 30 years, the Fiero Store has sponsored our club events, provided free technical support, and produced well over 150 exclusive parts that no big box store would even consider. So, next time you need Fiero parts, head over to thefierostore.com and browse through thousands of products that are specifically designed for your Fiero. That's fierostore.com, the world's largest source of Fiero parts. All right, so I'm just going to flip around a few things, and we're going to talk about the 2.5-liter four-cylinder Fiero engine first before we jump into the interviews held at Fierorama. So most of you, and I would assume all of you guys, know that the Iron Duke is a 150.8 cubic inch, 2.5-liter inline four-cylinder engine built by Pontiac in the large quantities from 1977 to 1993. And during its production life, the engine was used in a wide range of applications and saw many technical changes. This engine saw several naming references also during its lifespan, including the Iron Duke, the 2500 when it was used in the Oldsmobile Omega, the 151, the Pontiac 2.5, and the Tech 4. Although the decal that appeared on the air cleaner housing states the engine is a Tech 4, the engine's designation in that vehicle identification number VIN is an R, U, or A, depending on its applications. However, as used in the Fiero, it was labeled a code R. The Iron Duke is again often mistakenly believed to be the same, or at least related to the Chevy 153, which was a four-cylinder version of the Chevrolet 230 inline six-cylinder engine used entirely in the entry level of the Chevy 2 and Nova automobiles in the 1960s. There are no parts interchangeably between these two engines. Due to the lack of the customer demand, Chevrolet ceased use of the 153 in domestic GM products back in the 1970s. Well before the Fiero was even an idea, but particular engines performed different duties in the U.S. postal vehicles and GM vehicles sold outside of North America. after being discontinued in domestic GM vehicles. So, it is often stated that the Iron Duke is half of a Pontiac 301 V8 offered from 1977 to 1981, which is also false. But the two engines have nothing in common other than both having 4-inch bore and a 3-inch stroke. A Pontiac press release dated back in August 30th of 1976 did state that the Pontiac cast iron 2.5 liter, 151 cubic inch 4 liter or L4 is a new engine. That press release went on to state that the L4 engine produced just about 90 horsepower at 4,400 RPMs. So the early Iron Dukes were equipped with a Chevrolet V8 bell housing, which shared the third generation Chevy inline six-cylinder engine until the early 1980s. The later versions of the Iron Duke used a Buick Oldsmobile Pontiac bell housing bolt pattern, common in the now 2.8 liter V6 bell housing bolt pattern that you see. The Iron Duke is a pushrod engine using a cast iron alloy block and cylinder heads, valve in the heads, with hydraulic lifters and 5 main bearings. So despite the performance features quoted in Pontiac's earlier press releases, in the 1977 Iron Duke, which was equipped with a 2-barrel carburetor, it produced 87 horsepower at 4,400 RPMs and 128 pounds per foot, or torque at 2,400 RPMs. Internally, the engine was designed like the LX6. So, what made the Iron Duke and had always been intended for was the use as a durable, efficient, and economical engine that not only was not as a performance engine, which in fact that is rarely recognized its detractors, but the engine itself, which at 2.5 liters is relatively large in displacement for a 4-cylinder engine. It's compact and stout when used as intended, but it has its weaknesses when the effects were made to transform it into a performance engine. Particularly when operated at higher RPMs for extended periods of time, the engine delivers a low-end torque, which making most of its power below 3,000 RPMs, which is well suited for the manner in which Americans were driving in the late 1970s. It is not a high revving engine, and nevertheless, GM and other vehicle manufacturers realized that the Iron Duke's qualities, as illustrated by its numerous applications, the list of vehicles that made, that just weren't a high output engine. So, as the time went on, this is the list that they came out with that used the Iron Duke, and it was literally for entry-level vehicles. So the first time that the Iron Duke was introduced was in the 1977s with the Pontiac Astor, and it was badged as a version of the Chevrolet Vega. Then again in 77 to 79, the engine showed up in the Pontiac Phoenix and Ventura, and then another year later in the Pontiac Sunbird. From 78 to 80, it was in the Chevrolet Monza and the Oldsmobile Starfire. From 80 to 84, it was in the Omega and again in the Phoenix. And then extended out, the Buick Skylark, the Chevrolet Citation, early versions of the Chevy Camaro, the Firebird, the Celebrity. From 82 to 91, it jumped into the Pontiac 6000. 82 to 92, it was in the Buick Century and the Oldsmobile Cutlass, and then in 84 to 88, the well-known Pontiac Fiero. 85 to 87, it jumped into the S10 and the Blazers and the S15 Jimmies. And then it was like that for a couple more years for the S10 pickup and the S15 Sonoma. Jumped into the Astro vans, the Safari vans, the Buick Somerset, and then in the one that lasted the longest from 85 to 91 was the Grand Am. And again, it went back into the Cutlass, and then for till 91, the Skylark. And then from 90 to 92 was in the Chevy Lumine. So, yes, that's correct. In the early 90s, customers could actually purchase a Camaro or a Firebird with an Iron Duke. But keep in mind, the US had experienced two fuel shortages by this time, and all the automotive manufacturers are trying to offer a more fuel efficient alternative. And the Iron Dukes equipped in the Camaros and the Firebirds did sell. And the Iron Duke option for these two cars, it was only offered for 3 years. So it wasn't a long period of time, but it did give the consumers an option to own a Camaro or Firebird that was economically sound. In addition to the GM products, two other manufacturers recognized the value of the Iron Duke and employed the engine, put the engine in their vehicles with the applications. These included the AMC Concorde, the AMC Spirit, the Jeep CJ5, CJ7, CJ8. At that time, these were labeled as Hurricanes by AMC, the AMC Eagle, and the Grumman LLV, which was the United States Postal Service delivery vehicle. So the engine got a lot of use during that time period, and the output varied in the years before its use in the Fiero. So, it had a long run. And in 1978, it was producing 85 horsepower at and 23 pounds foot of torque. But both rose to about 90 horsepower and 128 pounds foot in 79. But the horsepower did slip to 86 in 1980. And prior to 82, the engine was reformed, re-engineered, and had a non-cross-flow head with the intake and the exhaust on the same side of the engine, keeping in mind the limitations of this engine, and it needed to maximize the fuel economy. So Pontiac got real serious about improving the engine's performance once they had an exciting product in which to install the Iron Duke, which, as we know, was the Pontiac Fiero. And at that time, the Iron Duke, which was introduced in the 84 Fiero, was a cast alloy block equipped with electronic throttle body fuel injections, the TBI, and swirl port combustion chambers that inside the cast alloy heads that spiraled the incoming fuel and air charge for faster, more efficient burning. And the pistons were aluminum alloy, and the compression ratio was increased from 8.21 to 9.01. And although these improvements allowed the engine to operate more smoothly and efficiently, the output did decrease from 94 to 92 horsepower, and the torque came in at 134 pounds per foot at 2,800 RPMs. So the 2.5 liter remained basically unchanged for the 85 Fiero, but it did see an addition of roller lifters, which improved the bearings and improved bearings and a new crankshaft. While the power output remained the same, the engine ran smoother and the drivability had improved, which the engine was not yet named the Tech 4 in any Pontiac literature at that time, but did have that designation on the air cleaner housing. So as we jump again from 85 to 86, the now Tech 4 had benefited from a new machine process that ensured more uniform cylinder head bore size and shape. Other changes included improved valve cover and oil pan seals and a redesigned air conditioning compressor and condenser. So the Fiero SE, the coupes were equipped with the tuned dual twin port exhaust originally designed for the Indy Pace car, which now got brought over to the 86 Fiero. And although technically not part of the engine, the 86 Tech 4 did receive revised engine mounts to improve the vibration isolation as well. Then in 87, the Tech 4 did receive more refinements, including a direct fire, a distributor-less ignition, the DIS, that used a notched regulator ring, a gear that now this gear sends a signal to the pickup coil on the end of the crankshaft along with the magnetic pickup on the block. So as each notch rotated past the pickup, it triggered a highly accurate ignition pulse that added accuracy to the firing and improved long-term reliability. Also, it created a better flowing throttle body injector, the TBI, which improved cylinder head with the improved cylinder heads and new ram tuned manifold boosted horsepower to 96 horsepower at 135 pounds per foot of torque at 4,800 RPMs. And some of the other improvements included a single serpentine belt with an automatic spring-loaded tensioner for easy serviceability, lighter pistons and valve gear to reduce the noise, and a revised engine computer. And overall, the throttle body and intake manifold were enlarged with an oval cross section instead of a previously round cross section. And the ECM now handled the cruise control function, and which had formerly been the responsibility of a separate module. So as you can see, as the years went on with the Fiero, they were fine tuning it and making it better to be that long lasting engine that ran at 150,000 miles or 200,000 miles, or even some of the I think we've seen 300,000 miles at some shows that these engines, as long as they're taken care of, they're well maintained, everything. These engines are a workhorse. So then in 88, they added a balance shaft to smooth the engine vibrations. And up to this point, the engine incorporated a dog bone. Was on the upper front engine mount secured to the cowl to aid the controlling of the vibration. The crankshaft was modified to drive the oil pump and the balance shaft, and the connecting rods were made 40% stronger, and the pistons were made 7 grams lighter to make them the lightest 4-inch piston in the industry. And it increased output to 98 horsepower. And again, 98 horsepower compared to nowadays, I mean, back then 98 horsepower in a 4-cylinder was a lot. So at that time, 98 horsepower out of that little engine was pretty good. And throughout the use in the Fiero, the bore and the stroke remained at 4/3, and the compression ratio remained at 9.01. Further improvements in later years beyond the engine's use in the Fiero, though, included new pistons, rods, crankshaft, and in-pan oiling system. And the most powerful variant of the Tech 4 raised the rev limit to 5,500 RPMs and achieved 110 horsepower. So you could almost say that over the years that the Fiero was also a testing of what that 4-cylinder 2.5 liter could do. And I mean, as you can see, as time went on, that engine became more powerful, had more horsepower. And the Iron Duke Tech 4 engine has been proven to be tried and true, reliable if somewhat noisy, but a workhorse when not pushed to the limits. And from 78 to 90, the Iron Dukes were outfitted with composite thermal setting plastic camshaft gear that interfaced directly with the steel gear of the crankshaft, taking the place of a timing chain. So if you look at VIN R and U engines of the 91s and 92s, received a timing chain instead of a timing gear based on the commonly held belief that the timing gears tend to deteriorate after 80,000 miles, which, it could be true, may not, depends. I mean, how often you drive it, how worn do they get? However, there are numerous Tech 4 engines with the original timing gears that have exceeded that mileage. The benefit of the timing gear over the chain is the non-interference design, which results in no engine damage in the event of the timing gear failure. I will say, I think on a personal note on my Fiero four-cylinder, I want to say it was probably around that 70, 80, 90,000 miles that my timing gear went out on me. And, you know, it didn't cause any internal damage, but I would say, yeah, right around that 80,000 is when mine went out. So, they were composite material. They weren't steel or metal. They were just a composite that, yes, over time, the gears are just going to strip on you. Not all Iron Dukes were created equal. Despite all of them being manufactured by GM, some of the VIN R Iron Duke engines using the Fiero are, rugged and reliable, but some of them used in other GM products are less. The VIN U engines used in only the four-wheel drive N cars, including the Grand Am and the Cutlass and the Callus, the Somerset, Skylark, have many parts that vary from the VIN Rs. The crank thrust bearing and the cylinder head bolt patterns used in the Fieros vary from the Iron Dukes used in other applications. But overall, the Iron Dukes that were used in the S10 trucks and the Astro vans and the Savari vans, they were solid. They were main webs like the Super Duty and like Super Duty 4, although the block was cast with above average grade iron. The S10 Iron Duke blocks weren't the same quality as they should have been, mistaken for, but the SD4 blocks, and then the later VIN A's introduced in 91 was only used in GM pickups. So the engine, again, the engine itself has gone through a lot of changes, but a lot of good changes for different applications, not only just used in cars, but vans and pickups. So despite the Iron Duke's humble beginnings, some additional performances have been gained, not by modifying the engine to produce more power, but by removing obstructions or restrictions in airflows so the power produced can be more fully utilized. The Iron Duke used in the production GM was never designed to be a high performance engine, or at least not a high performance engine with the necessarily durability. Although not a production engine, the Super Duty 4, the racing engine part, was notable and widely publicized at the time. It was the basis for NASCAR's touring car class, and a 2.7 liter 232 horsepower SD4 engine powered the 84 Fiero Indy pace car with a top speed of only 144 miles an hour, 138 during the race, which at the time was the fastest Indy pace car to perform that duty. And the Fiero pace car was also the first four-cylinder pace car since the 1912 Schutz car that ran the race. And the Fiero pace car produced 230 horsepower at 65 RPMs and 210 pounds a foot of torque at 5,500 RPMs. The SD4 was never available for production, unfortunately. as all of the 2000, 2001 Indy Fiero replicas came with the 2.5 liter 92 horsepower Iron Duke engines. However, Pontiac's performance parts counter had all the SD4 parts available, allowing customers to build their own 2.7 liter 272 horsepower version and the 3.2 liter 330 horsepower version. But the SD4 differs from production Iron Dukes in the block, the crank, the rod, the pistons, the header design, among other parts. But the crank of the production Iron Duke was made as light as possible for a good throttle response and fuel economy. So, in other words, it was designed for low performance cars and low performance driving. Trying to not to make too much performance out of a production Iron Duke may result in flexing of the crankshaft, causing rod bearing failure. As a result of the designing and the production of the Iron Duke to be as light as possible, it reaches its performance limits sooner than engines designed with performance in mind. And the Super Duty program came about because the GM knew that they could not get the performance they needed, 150 horsepower from a four-cylinder engine by modifying the Iron Dukes. And in turn, the first racing application for the SD4 didn't occur in the Fiero, but in a Pontiac Sunbird. And the SD4 was being designed for the Fiero Indy Pace car, but was used in the 83 Sunbird race in the 83 NASCAR Dash. The SD4 Sunbird did win, encouraging further development of the engine for the Fiero. So as Pontiac spent the decade following the demise of the Fiero, they made incremental refinements to their existing products. After that, Pontiac lost its way and concentrating on badge engineering vehicles from within, as well as outside of General Motors, there were a few notable bright spots in the Pontiac's product line between the late 90s and the 2010 when the GM turned off the lights of Pontiac. However, the SD4 and the 2.5 used in the Fiero was, and the SD4 was the last in the line of the high performance Pontiac Super Duty engines. So as we conclude with the 2.5, it's if you look at the Fieros that are out there that still have the 2.5s, they are still very, very reliable. There's nothing, honestly, there's nothing really wrong with them. And they're easy to work on, they're easy to maintain. And it's just something that if you look at what they intended, you can still get 150 to 300, 400, maybe 500,000 miles out of these things if you really, keep them maintained and running. Um, a lot of people do like to upgrade them, but they are a very reliable economic car for if you just want to do cruising around. So other than that, that is it for the 2.5. Our next episode of FieroCast will dive into the 2.8 and just kind of get some ideas of what the 2.8s brought to the Pontiac Fiero. So if you like a copy of this episode, and the resources and the footnotes, you can contact our membership director for a copy of the January-February issue of Fiero Focus #1, dated 2017. And again, thank you to N.I.F.E member Christopher Sass for writing this article. Again, it's very well detailed, a lot of information in there. If I went too fast again, you can go back into your later versions of Fiero Focus and take a look at some of the images and stuff as this article pertains to. All right. Let's get do a little recap of Fierorama 25. Mostly, we had a great show. We had a great weekend. Friday was the annual Friday night dinner, and on Saturday we took a cruise, and we ended at the host hotel, and we had a great surprise where we had member Drew Money, and we had Rodney Dickman. They both had a Q&A session at about the Pontiac Miras, and on display was the prototype 6001. This was the Mira that debuted at the Detroit Auto Show. It is a prototype. It does have prototype characteristics. And if you want to learn about this particular vehicle, you can go to FieroFocus.com, click on the library, click on Fierorama, and then scroll down and find Fierorama 29, and you will see two videos. The first video is the Fiorama Saturday Mirror discussion with Drew Money and Rodney Dickman. That is about an hour long if you wanted it, but it dives really deep into this particular mirror and the mirror production as well. So great Q&A with Rodney and Drew. So if you want to take a listen to that. Otherwise, we jump into the show. The show was very, very good. We had just under 80 Fieros on the show field. It was a great turnout, great weather. Like to thank our key sponsors for the event. Without you guys, Fiorama cannot be free. So thank you for making Fiorama free to its members. We like to thank the Fiero Store, V8 Archie, Woody Buick GMC of Naperville, Mr. Mike's Auto Upholstery, Bonter Solutions, Fast Signs of Elk Grove Village, Tangi Cybersecurity and Technologies, Auto Dynamics, and Fierospace.com. Also, special thanks to the Courtyard Chicago, St. Charles for hosting our Fiero participants, as well as our Saturday night event, the pizza party, and the Q&A session. Jersey Mike's for supplying the food for Fiorama, and the St. Charles Park District for the space for us to hold a Fiorama 29. As you go through, the second video does kind of give some highlights of Fiorama, as well as some good overviews of what the show field looked like. As well as we like to give a congratulations out to the N.I.F.E Enthusiasm Award recipient. She may be too young to drive, but that doesn't stop her from being a regular passenger in her dad's 84 Red SE. We often see her at the fall color tours and spring driving tours, where her excitement is unmistakable. Her dad tells us she's always happy to see her Fiero friends. Whenever she knows she'll be part of an upcoming N.I.F.E event. Her enthusiasm is especially remarkable because she's only 8 years old. And the N.I.F.E board this year is proud to present the 25 Fierorama Enthusiasm Award to young Lillian Semekis, daughter of N.I.F.E member David Semekis. So congratulations, Lillian. We hope you enjoy all the events and the future events that are coming up. And we hope to see you and your family at these events as well. All the award listings and winners are also listed on the Fiorama video recap page if you want to take a look at those. But you know what? Let's kind of jump into some great interviews that we did at Fiorama. Some newcomers, some old timers, and just kind of some aspects of the show that you may not know. So sit back, and we will be back after this. All right, we are now here with Jim Hallman, president and founder of N.I.F E, and it's a great show. Good
It is.
turnout,
Yep.
weather. We have Miras here. We have a 308 here. What are your thoughts?
I think we are very blessed today to have this wonderful weather yet again, a little bit on the cool side, but that's okay. But yeah, as you mentioned, it's kind of unique to have a real Ferrari 308. Yes, this is a Fiero show, but this year we are highlighting the Mira, and we are trying to better educate the Fiero community on what the Mira is. And it's kind of rare that there's only 247 of them made. And we're trying to get the word out that these Miras are welcome in the Fiero community.
Absolutely. And then yesterday, I was not able to make it yesterday, but yesterday we had an opportunity for Drew Money to give a Q&A session, as well as Rodney Dickman was there as well to participate in the Q&A session. How did that go?
That was just attended by, if I remember, I think over 40 people participated in that. It was just a phenomenal educational session. We had the leading expert, two leading experts, Drew Money and Rodney Dickman there, and both of them just really interacted well, educated the community on what the Mira is all about and some really interesting historical facts. So it was a really great presentation, and I think we recorded it, and we're going to have that available for public viewing shortly.
Awesome. Well, I know it's a busy day for you, so I will let you get back to the show. Thank you for joining me today. And again, it's a great turnout, great weather, and we look forward to seeing what comes at the end.
Yep. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for doing this for us.
Yep, thank you.
Alrighty.
All right. We are here now with Todd Weichel. You have come all the way in from South Carolina.
Correct.
And this is your first or second time at Fierorama?
I've been at Fierorama pretty much most of every year through the 2000s. I think my last year here was 2008.
What brought you back? What made you jump on a plane to come back to St. Charles?
I was going to bring a Mara with me, with it being the Mara thing, and the guy that was coming with me wasn't able to make the trip. So it was like, I'm going to go anyway. So I booked a plane ticket and made it happen.
What are your thoughts coming back after so long?
The location's different than I was here last time. This works out real well. Attendance is great. There's a lot of new people that I didn't know, even though I was here so much before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I'm glad I came. It's been a fun trip.
What do you think of the prototype Mira? And then we also have here an actual 308 next to it, so you can kind of see the differences between the two.
I'm amazed to have them both together, because you see pictures of both of them, but not having them in the same photo by themselves, you don't really get to pick them apart as far as what's different about them. And it gives you a great representation of, oh yeah, this is a little bit different here, because most people don't see enough of the real 308s to know the difference.
Right.
You know?
What would you say are some of the similarities, and what are some of the noticeable differences?
I think the wheelbase is almost right on. It's obviously the windshield's laid back a little more and the roof line's lower.
Mm-hmm.
But for a guy that doesn't know the two from one from the other, the giveaway is the triangle window in the front, whereas that's a rectangle that rolls down. Instead of the Fiero, the whole window rolls down.
Mm-hmm. How about the rims?
The rims, they're pretty much matched as far as you have to be a Ferrari guy to know the difference, really. Mm-hmm. The body line's a little more long and swooping front to rear if you look at them side by side. But with what they had to work with to make it fit on a Fiero, I think it's about as good as you could have possibly got.
Yeah. And honestly, I was surprised that we were able to get a 308, an actual 308 here to kind of see what the differences are and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people here are now able to, kind of like what you just said, they're able to see what the similarities are and what the differences are. But I mean, having them side by side is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think you'll find out that there'll be a lot of people here that won't realize that white one wasn't a Mara. If it wasn't announced, hey, and while they were standing here, that's a 308,
yeah.
They just think it's another one, because they're not trying to pick the two in different. And if you're not, they look like the same car walking by them.
Exactly. Going back to the show field, I think we got close to 70, if not more, Fieros here. What, in your minds, what stands out today?
The engine swaps have really grown a lot. You see a lot more of that going on from what it was in the past. I noticed Jason Jacoby's car over there. That sleek stock look just really.
Yep.
I'm a purist and I love the engine swamp, and it's just that he rolled in here and I was like, man, this thing's quiet. And he's like, yeah, I asked for that, and I was like, I can understand because I'm on that same token, you know. I drove Lee Myers' car over here from the hotel, and I told him, I said, man, this thing just drives nice. It feels good, drives good, doesn't squeak, rattle, you know. And I'm sure most of them out here are like that, you know.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm surprised. I mean, it's been another 10, 15 years since I've been up here, and you're still finding cars in this condition. I mean, you would think by now it would be a bunch of rough looking cars, and it's still not. They're still getting taken care of.
Yep. Well, I will let you get back to the show. Thank you for coming all this way.
Absolutely, man.
From South Carolina, and enjoy the rest of the show. And again, thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
We are now here with Mike Schmidt. If you guys follow us on Facebook and follow us through Fiero Focus, you are actually, jumping subjects here, you're actually going to be hosting us at the Fall Color Tour this year.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Going to have an awesome fall drive and a barbecue at Camp Schmitty.
Awesome. Thank you. But now we're going to come back to Fierorama. This is your 4th year?
First Fierorama was in 2019. That's the year basically we bought our car.
Okay.
I think we skipped 1 year, so.
Yeah, I think it was 2020 was what we.
Yeah. So.
Well, what brings you back? I know you have a very nice modified custom car that you've basically taken from the stock to what it is today. Tell us a little bit about some of the modifications you've done and what brings you back to Fierorama and the camaraderie of Fierorama.
So, I guess what brings me back is obviously the people, you know, and the cars. A lot of, you know, the people here you only see on social media. Mm-hmm. It's kind of nice to get everybody together and catch up on what's been happening over the last year. The car, it started out stock, and you know, after fixing all the little things that were wrong with it, the nuances and whatnot, then we decided, well, we needed to make it a little quicker. Mm-hmm. It's fun to drive, but just not quite fast enough for us. You know, so then we started researching the engine swaps and all that, and I think it was actually my first Fierorama here is when I started seeing the 3800s and all that, and then just started researching, and it's just kind of been an evolving thing, you know. Mm-hmm. A little bit here, a little bit there.
And you've done all the work yourself.
Yeah, it's typically a family project. You know, my oldest son usually does all of our welding, and then he kind of taught me how to weld, and then I started, you know, doing the exhaust. But yeah,
Very cool.
It keeps us busy.
It does. It's the car that keeps giving.
Yeah, it's a great Friday, Saturday night car, weekend cruiser.
Yes. Yep. And going back to the Facebook, yeah. I mean, you guys are always out taking it to little cruise nights or just out for a drive just to take it out. And
yeah.
So I mean that's what the car's meant to do. Meant to, you know, go out and have fun with it. So
yeah, once you know, sit in it and get on the road, it's then you start to remember why. You know, you got it, you bought it, and you did all these things to it. It's always fun to drive.
Exactly.
You know, I don't think a non-Fiero owner would understand. Really,
mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'll let you get back to the show and seeing what's around. Last question. What stands out today for you?
What stands out today? So, a lot of different things. I mean, we got all the mirrors here this year, which is pretty cool. We got good weather. It's not raining.
Real quick, since you brought up the mirror, have you had a chance to look at the prototype and the 308 together and kind of really see what the differences are between the two?
Yeah, I intend to look at that some more. I just looked at it briefly, mm-hmm. but I've driven that 308. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, it's I never realized there's so many just little differences, until seeing them side by side.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a great thing to have both here, just to kind of get an idea of what they were looking to accomplish. And if I know Todd was here just before you, and he said that to the average Fiero owner, you see the Mira, that's the Ferrari.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's the first one, right?
Yeah. Yep. The prototype.
Oh. Is that the one that was at the 40th?
Yes, and the 35th. Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It was really cool. He was on the drive yesterday too. Just
Nice.
tooling down the highway, with the mirror in there.
Yep. So, all right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. I'll let you get back to the show, and again, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
All right, we are now here with Bill Clicker. He is not only a longtime Fiero owner, longtime board member, our IT director, but he is also our Fierorama car classifier. So, Bill, first, what kind of a history? What got you involved with the Fiero?
Wow, you're going back a ways, Mike. I was telling Jim before, our story is a little similar. I think I remember Jim saying in high school he always wanted a Corvette, and I always admired those classic Corvettes as well. But as a recent college graduate, Corvette was way out of the budget, and I sort of discovered the Fiero. It was like I was familiar with the car throughout the 80s, in high school and that, but it was unobtainable at the time. I was a high school student, right? No big deal. So. But got out of college, it was a different story. It's a few years later, this is early 90s, and I started looking and found one on the side of the road for sale, and it worked out. That I've owned it ever since. So
Nice.
yeah.
That's the what you have is the BK Fly, right?
Yeah, I've had that plate for a while. It's a white 86 GT with the 5-speed. I've had that one. And then I did pick up a 88 Coupe some years later, really to commute in. And that car is still on my driveway. Needs some help. But one of these days I'm going to get to it.
Yep. Oh, I've had one of those stories too. So I feel your pain on that one.
Yeah.
So over the course of the years that you've been with the club and all that stuff, so you've gotten to know the Fieros very well, which leads into the car classification for Fierorama. So what is that process? What kind of mindset do you have to then switch to view all of the 70 plus cars that come in?
I think at a high level, our show is pretty casual. We work with people. Some people are really interested in being in a particular class, and unless it's obvious that they don't belong in that class, we're not going to push the envelope really. So if you come in and we base our class breakdown on viewable modifications. We came up with that term intentionally because if it's something internal, say in some internal engine work they've done, we don't count that as a mod. It's not viewable. It's not something you could look at the car and tell. But if they had chromed intake covers, and they've got custom paint, and they've got custom interior, you're starting to add up those modifications. And we even go as far as body mods. If you've got a spoiler and you've got a chin spoiler and you've got side scoops, that's a body mod. That's not 3 modifications necessarily. It may come into play if it's a borderline situation, but generally we just kind of take a look at the car and you kind of know what to expect in terms of a stock car, and then you just kind of tally up what are the viewable mods. And if it's obvious, you say, hey buddy, you're probably you're custom class, right? And that one's easy. But if it's something where they've got maybe 4 modifications, and then you got to really look a little closer. We're not popping deck lids. We're not digging into their engine compartment or anything. Well, I'll say any modifications under the hood, and we go with that.
Okay. What would you say out of all the years you've been doing this? And I know there was that modification with the V6s where it was an internal. But again, somebody comes in and I just have a V6. It's something that look. What are some of the unique things that you have seen over the course of the years that that stand out that are a viewable modification that wow, that is real cool?
That's one come to mind today. It's not that it was that unusual of a mod, but what he chose was different. He did a headliner. It was some kind of a wild 80s looking pattern. It was bright colors. So that was kind of cool. You don't see that ever, right? But I was asking him about it quickly because I only have a few minutes to talk to him as they come in the show. But he bought the 1/8-inch foam, and he bought the fabric, and his mom helped him out, and they, got the fabric attached to the foam. They got the foam attached to the headliner.
Wow.
It was an interesting process, and he did the waterfall panel behind the seats in the same pattern. So, just there's always something different when
Yeah,
you come to
absolutely.
Fiorama. You never know what you're going to see.
And it's all to that personal touch too, where somebody wants to add their personal touch to their car, which makes that car that much more unique.
Yeah. I'm preaching to the choir here a little bit, but the Fiero is just so flexible, and Mike, you can do so much with it, and every time you think you've seen it all, there's more to be seen, right? More that somebody's doing that's just way out of the norm. That's
Absolutely.
cool.
All right. Well, thank you. I will let you get back to the show. Again, there's a lot of cars here to view and stuff like that. So again, thank you for joining me.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
All right, we now have Todd Thorson here. He is not only a Fiero owner, a N.I.F.E member, and Fierorama key sponsor with Tangi Cyber Security. You're part of the Fiero family here. What brings you? Let me rephrase. What got you involved with the Fiero, and then what brings you to Fierorama, and also as a key sponsor to Fiorama?
Sure, Mike. Well, I got my first Fiero when I was 16. I had actually traded another car for it, and I really didn't know much about them at the time. It was an 86 Fiero that I got in 87, so it wasn't that old. It was a 4-cylinder stock car, 4-speed. And I just really liked the car, and I've had 12 of them over the years, never more than like 2 at a time, so I can stay married. But I joined the N.I.F.E in 1998, so my first Fierorama was Fierorama 3 when it was back in Oak Brook Terrace, and you all were checking everybody in the lobby of the McDonald's.
Yep.
And I just love the little car. I think what brings me back to Fierorama each year is this is the one day every year I don't have to justify why I own this little car and why I like it so much. Because at every other car show, I have to go through the whole story, right? Yep. I got to talk about the safety aspect and the reliability aspect and all the other misnomers and myths about this little car. And, not being a small of stature person, I'm pretty comfortable in it, and I've had a lot of Pontiacs over the years. I mean, I still have a Solstice, and I've had Firebirds and a bunch of other stuff, but I've always had a Fiero.
Yeah.
And I just love the little car. They used to be really cheap to buy and own. A lot of them I paid $400 and drove them home, and prices have been climbing. I've probably been talking to too many people about it, I guess, because the prices keep going up. But that's really why.
And the one you have here today is a pace car.
It is.
And that is, I mean, that one has won many awards, but is an immaculate car.
I've probably put 4,000 or 5,000 miles on it in the 10 years I've owned it. And so it doesn't get driven a ton. I'm the second owner. I bought it from the original dealership in Michigan. The quick story there is that the original owner had bought the car for his son when it was new. His son unexpectedly passed away in the 90s, and he couldn't sell the car, and they put it in a barn. And then Pontiac went away, and then it became a Hyundai dealership. And then in 2016 or so, 2015, the dealership was going bankrupt, and they started digging through barns, pulling out these vehicles, and I just happened to stumble on it. Aired up the tires, changed the oil there in the barn, and drove it home with bald spotted tires with 67,000 miles on it, original. Filthy, but
then here it is today.
Here it is today.
Yeah, awesome. You also you help out also with some of our winter club meetings as well. Thank you for that. But what stands out at the show today that maybe you haven't seen before, or things that that stand out that's really catching your eye today?
I think that the sort of tribute this year to the Mira is pretty nice, because we don't often see that anywhere at any of the Fiero shows, right? And so, I mean, there's always some rebodies and some other stuff, and they're usually in varying states of of looking okay, right? A lot of them are rough sometimes. But to actually have one of the prototype mirrors here today is pretty amazing. And I think that's what I like about the N.I.F.E show is we always have some sort of prototype car, special edition, rare. To have the members themselves bring those cars out, I think is pretty awesome. So for me, I think it's all that. I'm not going to win any awards this year because I only win awards when it rains and everybody stays home. So the weather's way too nice for me to win any awards today, but there's a lot of fantastic cars here for sure.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sponsoring. And thank you for just being part of the N.I.F.E family. I'll let you get back to the show. I think we still got another hour or 2 hours left, but I'll let you get back. And thank you again for joining and participating.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to help.
All right. Thank you again for listening to the newest episode of Fierocast. Hope you learned some more about the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder Fiero Iron Duke engine, as well as a nice recap of Fierorama 29 held at Potawatomi Park in St. Charles this year. Thank you to all of our guests on Fierocast today. Again, hope you guys all enjoyed Fierorama, and we hope to see you guys all again next year. This podcast was written by N.I.F.E member Christopher Sass, produced by GoldenEye Graphics, and is a production of the Northern Illinois Fiero Enthusiasts. Thank you again for joining me. I am your host, Mike Cryer, and thank you for listening to the newest episode of Fierocast. This is episode 55, and it is the only podcast dedicated to the Pontiac Fiero and the Fiero community. If you'd like more information or have any ideas on any future Fierocast, you can email me at mkroyer@fierofocus.com. We have some great episodes coming up. Again, we got the 2.8. We're going to talk about the T-tops. We're going to talk about what to look for if you are going out to bid on a Fiero at an auction. Some great episodes coming up. So remember to keep Fieroing, and good night, Fiero owners, wherever you are.